It's that time again, fight fans. I'm Michael Montero for Boxing Monthly. You're watching the Neutral Corner for the week of January 28th. Oh man, I've had a crazy 48 hours. Actually got up Monday. It's Tuesday night I'm shooting this. I got up Monday to go shoot episodes of 10 Count for Undisputed Champion Network. That was in Santa Monica out at the beach. And then I had to drive downtown to go to my day job at the office. And that was during a crazy storm we're having here in Los Angeles right now. And then today, I had to go downtown and start work. I had a meeting in Sherman Oaks, which is way in the valley, at 10:30. And then I had to go down to Santa Monica at noon and then head back downtown. Just getting home to start recording. It's been crazy. I'll stop bitching now. Let's get into some news and notes. A lot to discuss. Some news and notes here to talk about. First, let's start with Golden Boy Promotions, who just announced a deal with ESPN and ESPN Deportes. I think that this is great, not just for Golden Boy, obviously, but for boxing, for American boxing in general. But this is awesome because ESPN, you guys know, PBC, took over their Friday Night Fights thing, and they had all these dates that they were supposed to have. And then you saw what happened last year where all the dates got scrapped. Now, PBC technically still has a few cards, a few dates on ESPN between April and August of this year. And I believe they're going to still fulfill that. They're still going to have those cards. But this deal with Golden Boy Promotions, it's a long-term thing. Tecate is the main sponsor, but they're going to have several other sponsors. These cards are not going to replace the LA Fight Club cards. I know some of you guys have asked about that. The LA Fight Club cards are still going to go on Estrella TV, I believe, and they're still going to be streamed on ringtv.com, on Ring Magazine's website. So they're going to continue to do those cards. These cards on ESPN are basically going to be a notch higher than that. So think old Friday Night Fights, pretty much that level, but they're not necessarily going to be on Friday. In fact, I think the first card that's scheduled in a couple months is actually on a Thursday night. Don't quote me on that. I don't have the date right in front of me, but I think that's what it is. So let's see. I think the first one's at Fantasy Springs Casino here in California, but these cards are going to travel. They're going to go all over the country. And I love this for Golden Boy because, a lot has been said about Golden Boy Promotions, especially from some of the rival promoters and their press, lapdogs, especially, the YouTube guys, that say Golden Boy Promotions only has one superstar, and that's Canelo Alvarez. Well, no shit. That's pretty much how all big promoters are. There's pretty much one guy that's making 8 figures or somewhere near that, hopefully. Or there might be a few handful of guys making, 7 figures. But that's pretty much what it is. And that's what Golden Boy has right now. But a lot of you don't remember. You go back a few years when they were working with Al Heyman and Richard Schaefer, and they built up the careers of Deontay Wilder, Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, Daniel Jacobs, all these guys. And basically 80% of their roster was just plucked from them as a result of a court settlement they had with Al Heyman. And I think Al Heyman gave them some money, technically paid Golden Boy Promotions some money, and Richard Schaefer, as you know, was suspended after that whole ordeal. Really nasty business. And at that point, basically Golden Boy Promotions was Canelo Alvarez, whose contract was running out, and I believe David Lemieux. That was it. That was pretty much it, man. And they got Canelo Alvarez to re-up his contract. And of course, he's bigger now than ever. His brand, even though, there's some fans who are upset with him, he's making a ton of money. He's making 8-figure paydays. But over the last few years, Golden Boy Promotions has restocked their stable. And if you compare this to baseball, these Ring TV cards, they're streaming these, and that's the future of this business, if you really, really look at it, which is a smart thing. So they're developing that technology with those like AAA cards. Think of those as AAA ball, if you're going to make a baseball comparison. These ESPN cards are going to be like AA ball, maybe occasional single A ball, right? But pretty much that's what it's going to be. So guys that graduate from the Belasco Theater, from the LA Fight Club cards, they're going to go to ESPN. And then from there, they're going to go maybe to an HBO Latino, something like that. Maybe there'll be maybe a co-feature on regular HBO. If you look at the way Joseph Jojo Diaz has been brought up over the last couple of years, that's pretty much the way it's going to go here now. So by the time you get to HBO, obviously that's professional ball. And then if you're on HBO pay-per-view, that would be the All-Star team. So bam, my whole baseball scenario plays out, right? At every level. If you look at the way Golden Boy Promotions is set up right now with their young roster, their infrastructure is really, really nice. And I think they're set up better than any of the other big American promoters to do big things over the next 20 years. They're in the right market. They're located in Los Angeles. That's the hotbed of boxing in North America. If not the Americas, pretty much the Americas, it's LA, right? And then across the pond, it's London. And then maybe you can go over to Asia and it's Tokyo. They're trying to build it up in Macau, blah, blah, blah. I could keep going. But LA is the thing here in the United States, right? Of course, Vegas is always going to have its big cards, but Vegas is a 4-hour drive away. So Golden Boy Promotions is within proximity of all that. They're within proximity of all the hot gyms. All the best gyms in America right now are in Southern California, maybe Las Vegas. And they're right in the heart of where the action is. And they have all these young prospects that they're going to be bringing up. And as you continue to graduate these guys from one platform to the next, their fan base grows. This is the way you do it, man. Start small, build big. What Golden Boy Promotions has done in just 3 years after being left for dead is pretty damn impressive. Now the onus is on them to make good fights. These ESPN cards will only succeed if good fights happen. We were talking about this in an episode of 10 Count when I shot that with Steve Kim and Doug Fisher yesterday for UCN Live. And Steve made the point that some of these Golden Boy prospects that are going to be put on these ESPN cards have to lose. They have to lose some fights. That's how you know they're being matched tough. If they always win, then you know they're not being matched tough enough and the series will ultimately fail. But let's move on to some other news. Also, Golden Boy Promotions picked up Yuriorkis Gamboa. Now, Yuriorkis Gamboa has been a player in recent years, maybe not in the last couple years, but before that, he was in some exciting fights. He won some titles. He's a guy who's very experienced. Of course, the amazing amateur career. He had a really great, exciting fight with Terrence Crawford not too long ago. So let's see what happens. He's also been another one of these Cubans that looks disinterested at times, looks like he's boxing just for the paycheck because he's good at it, and he was basically forced to do that back in that system he grew up in. Will he get serious here? I don't know. Golden Boy Promotions recently worked with another Cuban, Luis Ortiz, the heavyweight, who I thought they did a pretty good job with considering some of the problems he had getting popped for a banned substance and everything else. They did pretty good for him. They got him on HBO and he kind of became a diehard fight fan darling while he was under the guidance of Golden Boy. So can they do something like that with Yuriorkis Gamboa? If anything else, he could serve as a good big name opponent for some of their prospects that they're trying to take from prospect to contender, right? He could be, maybe one of those guys where it's like, if you can beat Gamboa, then you're ready for the big dogs. So I think it's a good signing. More to come on that. I talked about Danny Jacobs a few minutes ago, and it just reminded me. You guys that follow me on Twitter saw this. I talked to some of the people at VADA this week, and they said, because I was asking about Daniel Jacobs, why hasn't he signed up for VADA testing for his fight with Golovkin in March? And they told me that basically that same day, he had literally contacted them, or his management had contacted them, and they were just awaiting on the rest of the paperwork. So maybe by the time I'm done posting this online, if not by then, within the coming days, he will be enrolled in VADA. That is great news. I love that. What else? The guy is going to fight Gennady Golovkin. There are rumors that there's a possibility Gennady Golovkin, Billy Joe Saunders in Kazakhstan this summer. That would unify all the belts at 160 pounds. And at that point, he would have everything he wants if that fight can actually happen. Now, apparently, There are some whales out there that are putting up big money to lure Billy Joe Saunders over there, and he's gotten serious now that he's working with trainer Adam Booth. Supposedly he's getting serious now after pretty much being a non-factor for the last 2 years. Look, I just don't believe anything that comes out of Saunders' mouth. I just don't believe him. He's pretty much Adonis Stevenson. He's on that level. I don't care. If this fight gets signed in Kazakhstan, obviously that's huge. It's a huge homecoming. It'd be a crazy event. If it really does come off and you look at what Manny Pacquiao is doing with his world tour this year, I just think it further builds boxing globally, and I love events like that. So it'd be awesome to see a fight in Kazakhstan, and it would completely unify the middleweight division. And at that point, if Canelo wants to keep bullshitting and doesn't fight Golovkin by the end of this year, Gennady accomplished his goals, and he can move up to super middleweight in 2018. But again, seeing is believing. I don't believe anything that Saunders says. Upcoming cards, Showtime. They just obtained the rights to the March 25th rematch between Jorge Linares and Adam Carolla. That's going to be in Manchester. This makes a lot of sense. Not only because the first fight was a good fight, and this rematch will probably be even better. I actually think it'll be better than the first fight. But of course, this is for a lightweight title. And this weekend, their Showtime is showing a lightweight title fight between Dejan Zlaticanin, it's a hard one to say, and Mikey Garcia. So 2 lightweight fights, for lightweight title fights within a month or so of each other. Maybe the winners of those 2 fights face off in the summer. That's how you build it up. And Showtime, man, this just adds to their great schedule in the first quarter of this year. Some more business stuff. David Haye has announced a partnership between his Haymaker Promotions outfit and Ringstar Promotions, the new promotional outfit from Richard Schaefer. To be honest with you guys, I haven't read much about this one. I really just don't care. David Haye is fighting Tony Bellew, which is a meaningless fight at heavyweight. I get it. It's going to be a fun domestic level fight. It's going to be a poor man's version, business-wise, for what Canelo and Chavez is going to be over there in the UK. After that, is David Haye going to fight somebody meaningful at heavyweight? Probably not. I don't see him doing that. Maybe he'll go after one of the weakest title holders. Maybe he'll try to go after one of these young guys like a Joseph Parker before he's ready, but I don't even think he'll do that. He'll pretty much just continue to talk his way into big events that are winnable fights for him. So I don't give a shit. Haymaker and Ringstar working together, okay, cool. Have fun, guys. Good luck with that. But that's enough of the news and notes. Let's look back at some action from last weekend. So last Friday in Atlantic City, there was a Showbox card, and there were 3 good prospects who got some wins that I just wanted to talk about real quickly. If you guys haven't seen this and you have Showtime, or you have the Showtime app or something, go back and look for this on Showtime on demand. It'd be worth checking out. A couple of these guys look good, and one of them I wasn't very impressed with. But the headliner, Daniel Roman, who is now 22-2 with 1 draw, only 8 knockouts, isn't the most powerful puncher, wins a WBA 122-pound title eliminator against Adam Lopez, who he dropped twice in the 4th round, and he retired in the 9th round. So Roman, I talked about his record. He's 26 years old. He's a Los Angeles native. He's 5'5", so pretty good size for that weight class. Super bantamweight. I mentioned that this was a WBA eliminator. The regular WBA champion is Nihomar Semena, and the super champion is Guillermo Rigondeaux. So this is typical WBA bullshit. I would assume at this point Roman is lined up to go after Nihomar Semena, who I think is from Panama, a Panamanian fighter, and to go for the regular title, and then I guess they'd line him up for Guillermo Rigondeaux. This kid is not ready for Guillermo Rigondeaux. So I don't expect the WBA to try to line that up. I think Rigondeaux obviously would like a bigger, more high-profile fight, but the WBA, ultimately, they love having 3 titleists in every damn weight class. They're just a bag of shit. But this prospect looked pretty good. Doesn't hit very hard. That's going to limit his ceiling. But I do think he can find his way to a title at some point in his career. Probably never be a real champion, though, if you know the distinction there. Ronald Ellis, super middleweight fighter, improved to 14-0 with 1 draw, 10 knockouts, with a decision and an 8-rounder over Christopher Booker. This guy's 5'11", 27 years old, out of Massachusetts. I remember meeting him a few years ago and talking with him and doing an interview with him on my old channel before it got shut down by HBO when he first moved out to LA, and he was fresh off the boat out here, just getting started. It took him a while to get his bearings, and I think he had a couple of fights around middleweight. He's fluctuated a little bit. He's actually weighed as light as 148 for fights and as heavy as 172 for fights. But in this fight, he looked good as a super middleweight. I think that's where he'll settle in. And he's a good-looking prospect, man. And the super middleweight division is very weak. It's a very weak division right now. And Badu Jack, of course, just moved up to light heavyweight. So there's a vacant title there that they're basically going to give to Callum Smith. He'll fight for it, but they're basically giving it to Callum Smith. At some point, Ronald Ellis is going to be in the mix for one of those titles, though. I really do think that he'll end up grabbing one of these super middleweight titles as long as he stays focused and continues to be built the right way by his management. The other prospect here, Kenneth Sims, who also won a decision in an 8-rounder over Emmanuel Robles. Kenneth Sims, 5'10", out of Chicago. A lot of people talked about him as a blue chipper. Had a good amateur career, 130 pounds. He's now 11-0 with 3 knockouts. I was not very impressed. Offensively, he does some nice things. He has all the punches and everything, but fights very straight up and down. Gets his shots off and backs straight up. Gives you a really big target right in front of you after he gets his shots off. Emmanuel Robles was able, he was southpaw, and he was able to land some straight left hands over the much faster Sims. I think ultimately for Kenneth Sims, as he moves up in opposition, he faces guys who may not be as fast as him, may not have the athleticism, but have the ability to time him, have that craft. You know, maybe they're veterans and they have that knowledge and can see what's in front of them. I think he's a knockout waiting to happen. I think that he's going to be another Tony Harrison, another Amir Imam, one of those guys. Undefeated, looks good, has a record built up. It gets in there against the wrong guy and gets exposed. That's what I see happening with him in a few years probably. But that was it with last week, guys. There wasn't a whole lot going on. There's a lot going on this week, though, so let's get into the preview. So we have dueling cards this week on HBO and Showtime. Let's start with the HBO card, which is at the Fantasy Springs Casino here in California. We have 2 130-pound action fights. It looks like these are going to be action fights. Takashi Miura coming back. You know, he only had 1 fight in 2016. It was only 1 round against a guy who only had, I think, 8 professional fights. So he pretty much took 2016 off. This is his comeback against Miguel Roman, the rugged veteran who has been in there with the who's who around that weight class. Both of these guys are enrolled in VADA testing, for those of you who want to know about that sort of thing. I like this matchup for Miura. It's going to be interesting to see. He's a guy who's been cut, who's bled, who's been down. Of course, he had that great fight with Francisco Vargas at the end of 2015, that fight of the year, or the fight of the year for 2015. But what does he have left in the tank, man? He's had a couple of rough fights. Now, Miguel Roman is past his best. He's faded. He's been in some wars too. So I expect this to be a war of attrition. Obviously, you got to favor Miura. But, man, he's been in there in some rough battles. And don't be surprised if you see him a little swollen, maybe even bloody at the end of this one. But this should be a fun action fight. And then you've got Francisco Vargas making his comeback, his first fight since fighting Orlando Salido in the 2016 fight of the year last June. He's going up against rugged Mexican fighter Miguel Berchelt. For those of you who don't know anything about Berchelt, that's because he's pretty much only fought in Mexico. I think he had 1 fight several years back in, I believe, Las Vegas. in America, but other than that, he's fought exclusively in Mexico. But if you see some footage of this guy, he can crack, he's rugged, he's got a beard. I think he's gonna bring it against Vargas, and he's a very, very live dog. One distinct thing here, Berchelt is not enrolled in VADA testing, even though this is for a WBC title. I don't know how that works. Francisco Vargas is enrolled in VADA testing. Talk about a guy who cuts a lot, who bleeds a lot. Man, Vargas, you know, that fight with Salido is one of the dirtiest fighters in the sport. I love him, you know, because he makes for action fights, and he's a true guy who's made it the hard way, but he is an extremely dirty fighter. And he landed a lot of shots on Vargas with the left hand, the right hand, and the head. And man, he busted up Vargas's face. So how will that scar tissue hold up against Berchelt, who's young and hungry and coming here for his shot? This is his big chance, right? How's Vargas, his skin gonna hold up? How is he gonna look after that layoff? I don't know, man. But this is a guy who was in 2 straight fights of the year. Now, if Miura and Vargas win these fights, and obviously they're favored and they should win, although I do think Vargas is, the possibility of an upset resides more in the Vargas fight. But if these two should win, HBO wants to rematch them. I would love to see, if that can be pulled off, that can happen. Later this year, Vasyl Lomachenko against Orlando Salido, that rematch. And then you get these two rematching as the co-feature, and you put that at StubHub. That is a perfect doubleheader. And HBO would be back in the game, baby. They'd be back in the game if they made that card happen at some point this summer. Please do it at StubHub, because I want to be there. And I don't want to have to fly across the country to see it, damn it. Also on this card, Toriano Johnson making a comeback. His first fight since fighting on the Golovkin-Lemieux undercard way back in October of 2015. You remember, that was an IBF eliminator. He was supposed to be next in line for Gennady Golovkin, but he got hurt, he needed to get surgery, and he had to withdraw that mandatory status, and that's how the number 2 guy, Dominic Wade, ended up getting bumped up. So he's making his comeback after almost a year and a half off. Let's see what he has left. Saddam Ali is also fighting on this card, and several undefeated prospects. So all in all, this would be a great card to attend at Fantasy Springs. If you don't have tickets for this card yet and you're in the Southern California area, this would be one to go check out. It's going to be a really, really fun card to see live, and the 2 televised bouts will obviously be very, very good. And then from Las Vegas, we have a great card on Showtime, which features a rematch of one of the best fights of 2016. I'll talk about that main event in a second, but Lee Selby defending his IBF featherweight title. He only had 1 fight in 2016, and that was back in April. Just look, a lot of these PBC guys only had 1 fight, and some of them didn't fight at all last year. So you're seeing some of these guys get back in the mix now. Some of you might hear Lee Selby and be like, oh yeah, what the hell happened to him? So he's back, and he's defending his IBF featherweight title on this card. Also, a great co-feature. A fighter from Montenegro who actually holds the WBC lightweight title right now. This is the name I had trouble with earlier. Dejan Zlaticanin is going up against Mikey Garcia. And I think that this fight is going to steal the show. I think it's going to be better than the main event. For those of you who haven't seen Zlaticanin, good, rugged, rough fighter. Hasn't really fought anybody though. So that's the X factor. Has he looked good because of who he's been in against, or is he just been waiting for his chance to break out? That's what we're going to see. But I actually think he's going to give Mikey Garcia a pretty good push. The difference here is size. Zlaticanin is 5'4", 65-inch reach, 32 years old, a little bit older. Garcia's 5'7", 68-inch reach. So he's going to be punching down at Zlaticanin, and he's a few years younger at 29. Neither of these guys has fought a lot, though, in recent years. I was just looking at Zlatikanin's resume, and he had 1 fight in 2016 in June, and he had 1 fight in 2015, also in June. And then you take a look at Mikey Garcia. He only had 1 fight in 2016 in July. He didn't fight at all in 2015, and he had 1 fight in 2014 in January. So, you know, the last 2-3 years, these guys have not been very active. How is that going to spill over into this fight or carry over into this fight? I don't know. Zlaticanin is a southpaw, so and because of his style, I do think that that's going to give Garcia some issues early on. But I expect if Mikey Garcia is anywhere near the form that he was a few years back, when he was starting to hit pound for pound lists and he had won titles and everything, I expect him to win this fight. I think this thing will be close and competitive early on, and there might be some early moments for Zlaticanin, the current champion. But I think that Garcia is going to find his groove and carry or take over and carry the middle rounds. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a late stoppage. He really should. If he wants to make a statement, he should get a stoppage in this fight. He should stop a guy at this level who hasn't faced anywhere near the level of opposition that Garcia has. And then he would claim a lightweight title and really, really be back in the mix in boxing in a big way. Both of these guys are enrolled in VADA testing, as they should be, as this is a WBC title fight. Let's talk about the main event. This is the rematch between Carl Frampton, the fighter of the year in 2016 in most people's eyes, including myself. He's going up again against Leo Santa Cruz. Carl Frampton's record, 23-0, 14 knockouts. Leo Santa Cruz, 32, 1-1, 18 knockouts. Neither one of these guys is a knockout artist. You know, you compare them to the records of the fighters in the co-feature. Zlaticanin's 22-0 with 15 knockouts. Garcia's 35-0 with 29 knockouts. Those guys knock people out. I don't expect a knockout in this main event. I think we're going all 12 back to the cards. And I actually think this fight will be a little tighter than the original fight. I think it won't be quite as good, though. I think it'll be a little more technical, and I think it's going to, again, be tighter. You're going to have ebb and flow. You're going to have exciting moments. I think the crowd's going to be exciting because of course, you're going to have the UK fans coming out for Frampton. But you're also going to have some Mexican-American fans making the trip from LA to go see Leo. So you're going to have a lively crowd that isn't so one-sided. They're going to be going back and forth, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, this is for the WBA featherweight title. These guys originally fought last July 30th, I think. So, you know, they haven't fought since, but I think that's okay. Sometimes in a rematch like this, which was announced a while ago, it's okay that they haven't fought for about 6 months. That's a fine layoff after a fight like that. And this fight's actually been promoted fairly well. One note, Leo Santa Cruz is enrolled in VADA testing. Carl Frampton is not. So take from that whatever you will. Also, some more notes. Kenny Bayless is the referee in this fight. The judges are Dave Moretti, Bert Clemens, Glenn Feldman. You can't get any more Nevada State Athletic Commission, American boxing establishment than those four names. And for those of you who are wondering, Kenny Bayless has reffed several Leo Santa Cruz fights before. He's fought in Vegas a few times. I do not believe that Bayless has reffed a Carl Frampton fight. Correct me if I'm wrong. Dave Moretti and Bert Clemens have judged Leo Santa Cruz fights several times before. I don't think Glenn Feldman has, though. I think this will be Glenn Feldman's first time for both. But none of these judges have judged a Carl Frampton fight before. Again, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's what I found. So all the X factors considered, plus the fact that even though he lost the first fight, I still believe Leo Santa Cruz is the house fighter with Al Heyman in that outfit. And you're in the American boxing establishment with some of the good old boys judging it and reffing it. And then you're going to have the crowd noise won't be so in favor for everything Frampton does. It'll be a little more mixed, a little more even. Don't be surprised if Leo Santa Cruz pulls off a very close, very controversial, possibly split, possibly mixed majority decision. I could see that happening. If I'm a betting man, I'm betting money on Carl Frampton. He's just the better fighter. He's the better athlete. He has the much better footwork, and he punches tighter. But all things considered, politics play a part, and I'm telling you right now, guys, don't be surprised if Leo Santa Cruz pulls this one off. Don't say I didn't tell you so. But that's it for this week. Let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good shit. I'll see you at the fights.